Hey guys, welcome back to another review. I apologize if I haven't been putting up that many frequent reviews this January, but it's January. There really isn't that much to talk about. But, luckily enough, I do have at least one movie to talk about. And that film is Just Mercy with Michael B. Jordan. Actually, that is a lie. I'm not going to be talking about that. However, that is a really good movie, and I really do recommend it. But yeah. Want a quick little mini review of that in the beginning of this video real quick. I think it's a really solid film. Michael B. Jordan gives a great performance in the film. Jamie Foxx also does an equally good job in here. Like, this is probably the best he's been since, like, Ray and other films from the, like, Ray from 2001 or 3, I believe. But yeah, this was actually a really, really good film. But overall, I give it an 8.5. But that's not the film I'm talking about today. Today, I'm going to be talking about a film that a lot of you probably might not have heard of. It is based upon an H.P. Lovecraft short story, with that story being called The Color Out of Space. Now, what is it about? Well, here's the synopsis. The Gardner family lives out in Arkham, Massachusetts. For disclosure, Arkham is completely fictional. In fact, you ever wonder where Batman ended up getting Arkham Asylum from? He got it from H.P. Lovecraft. Ever wonder where the Evil Dead films, he ever got the name the Necronomicon from? H.P. Lovecraft. But anyways, back to Color Out of Space. So, the film focuses on the Gardner family as they've traded for city life for more rural and suburban life. One day, a mysterious meteorite ends up crashing down in front of their house. And then strange occurrences begin to happen that slowly begin to eat away at the family. Like the meteorite is causing mysterious plants to grow from the ground. It's messing with the mind of the family itself. Not only with their actual mental state, but also whether or not time is passing or other things like that. And yeah, this is a pretty out there film. And full disclosure, I've not actually read the H.P. Lovecraft story. The only problem is that I haven't been able to find a copy of it, but I am planning on rectifying that at some point in the future. But I also want to get, before I talk about the film itself, I want to talk about the actual making of the movie and the actual person who made the movie himself, Richard Stanley. Because I think the fact that it is important to mention this. You see, this is the first movie he's done in over 24 years. Now, a lot of you are wondering, 24 years? That's a long time. What was his first film? His first film would have been The Island of Dr. Moreau from 1996 with Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer. However, this was a man that got incredibly screwed over by the Hollywood system, you know? So, eventually he got fired from The Island of Dr. Moreau and got replaced with some other guy that I'm forgetting his name, but in fact, the production of that film was actually so bad, one of the actresses actually tried to leave the country to avoid working on it, and the producer had to, like, track her down at the airport to get her to come back to finish the movie. Like, it's so bad. There was actually an entire documentary called Lost Soul, the Dune version of Richard Stanley's Dr. Moreau, which detailed exactly how hectic that process was. And in the end, it didn't pay out, as Dr. Moreau not only bombed at the box office, but it was also a critical flop as well. So, yeah. But, yeah. Richard Stanley's actually had a personal connection to H.P. Lovecraft, as when his mother, when he was younger, his mother would used to actually read him the stories of H.P. Lovecraft, and he first read Color Out of Space when he was around 12 or 13, and when his mother was in declining health before she passed, he actually read her the stories of H.P. Lovecraft. So this is obviously somebody who's coming from a deep source of appreciation for this film and source. And not only this, but this actually premiered a couple months earlier. It actually premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival and premiered a couple of other film fests as well, like a Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas. So it was really cool. And, of course, at the center of this movie is, of course, Nicolas Cage, who gives a delightfully over-the-top performance. Now, Nicolas Cage is an actor who he'll do different takes, usually ranging from 1 to 10. And it's usually up to the job of the director and or the editor to sort of determine which take would best suit the scene or best suit the rest of the film. And the thing is, the meteorite itself actually begins to cause different effects on the family itself. Like, for example, the oldest daughter is actually a Wiccan and actually tried to perform several blood rituals to try and save her family. The youngest son is actually hearing voices down in the well, and the mother, she accidentally chopped off her own fingers when preparing the food. And of course, Nathan, which is Nicolas Cage's character, is slowly becoming more aggressive and agitated, and is slowly beginning to show signs of psychosis and other elements like that. But the ending of this film is absolutely just a downbeat ending, and it's just utterly insane. Very much like in H.P. Lovecraft too. But yeah, without getting into too much, the ending is definitely something that is like, whoa, that was something that was intense. And yeah, I mean, what do you expect from the exact same guys who ended up making Mandy? Because, hey, the same guys who produced Mandy produced this. And hey, that also starred Nicolas Cage, and that was also pretty out there and bizarre, so yeah. It is a truly bizarre movie, I will say. But if there is one complaint that I do really have with it, is that some of the effects do look good. Like, when the actual color itself begins to emit, that's actually a really cool effect. And in case you're wondering, in the novel, The Color Out of Space, usually they describe the color as, it's a color that's never been seen by the human eye before. Now, obviously, our human minds and or our eyes can't make up colors. But we can make up magenta, as that's actually made up by our eyes and or our minds. So, what they did was that whenever the color would emerge, it would be sort of like a mix between magenta pinkish a little bit. But anyways, not only that, but some of the practical effects were really cool. Like, later on, there's a creature that ends up, emerging, and it's actually a pretty horrifying sight, too, that's caused by, like, an outburst of the radiation coming from the actual light itself. And I should also mention the fact that if you think that this is going to be another one of those horror films where the black guy dies at the end, don't worry. It is not one of those movies. But yeah. While there are several effects in the film that I do feel like do look good, I do, however, feel like the fact that there are a few that probably could have used a little bit more money. Particularly towards the end of the movie with one sequence in particular. Those who have seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for the most part, yeah, this is a pretty out there experience. And this is probably one of the better H.P. Lovecraft adaptations that's ever been released. And whenever somebody tries to attempt to do an H.P. Lovecraft adaptation, they usually run into some difficulty like that. Like, for example, like I said before, in The Color Out of Space, in the book, he describes it as a color that's never been seen by the human eye before. So, usually whenever they would do an adaptation of The Color Out of Space, it would usually be black and white. So that way, when the color does emit, it makes it more apparent because everything else is black and white. But yeah, they actually did a pretty impressive job right here. And I think Richard Stanley did an incredible job. And he's actually stated previously beforehand that he is currently working on sort of a trilogy of Lovecraft films. And that the next film would be based on the Eldritch horror, I believe. But I'm not entirely too sure. Which brings me to another example, is that, the monster in that particular story was a monster that is invisible. And when somebody ends up seeing it for like a split second, it apparently sends them into shock. And, of course, probably going to be closing out this trilogy will be The Call of Cthulhu, which is probably one of the most influential and probably one of the most well-known Lovecraftian stories, as Cthulhu is a very well-known character within the span of pop culture and such. But yeah, overall, The Color Out of Space is a bizarre Lovecraftian-style horror movie with a delightfully over-the-top performance from Nicolas Cage that also helps. I just got the fact that Nicolas Cage is, in decent movies again, because Nicolas Cage for a while just went through the slump of just being in like a ton of bad movies. But I believe he's finally found out, he's picking the roles that he believes he would be good at. Like, for example, apparently he's going to be in a Five Nights at Freddy's, like, ripoff film called Wally's Wonderland, in which he fights off animatronics, which is going to be awesome. And supposedly National Treasure 3 is going to be in development, so, hey, that's actually really cool to hear. But, yeah, overall, I'm going to be giving The Color Out of Space an 8 out of 10. It's an enjoyable adaptation of one of Lovecraft's most famous and most celebrated works. Just don't expect it going into it thinking the fact that you're going to experience something deep, like something that's truly horrifying, like The Haunting of Hill House, or Hereditary, or other movies of those caliber. In fact, you could totally interpret this as just sort of like a fun, horror B movie that just happens to have Nicolas Cage at the helm of it, and it also happens to be a Lovecraft adaptation, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video of me talking about The Color Out of Space. Unfortunately, there will not be a new review next weekend because there's literally nothing coming out this week. Like I said before, January is a very, very, very slow month. But tune in 2 weeks when I eventually talk about Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Man, that's a long title. And tune in the span of around 20 or so days because there's a certain movie coming out on Valentine's Day of this year that I may or may not am reviewing because I may or may not have already purchased tickets to it. Although currently the name of it is currently escaping my mind right now. Just can't seem to figure out what. I don't know. I got it! Fantasy Island! To those who obviously did not understand the joke, you will eventually see a review of me talking about Sonic, because, I don't know, I just wanted to talk about Sonic, I guess. But yeah, stay tuned for that. And in that video, expect me to either talk about how that was actually a pleasant surprise, or how it's just as you expect it to be, which is not that good. I don't know. What do you think, Sonic? Exactly my thought. My thoughts exactly. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Stay tuned for Birds of Prey and Sonic reviews coming in the span of February. And as always, stay gold.